Welcome back to the Nightmare Crypt. Lock your doors, dim the lights, and whatever you do, don't look behind you. Tonight's story is not fiction, it's a confession. One I'm writing because I don't know how much longer I have before the house finishes what it started. I need you to understand something before you keep reading. I am not telling this story because I want attention. I'm not telling it because I believe in ghosts, curses, or anything supernatural. I never did. I'm telling it because something irreversible happened inside that house, and pretending it didn't nearly killed me. If you've ever felt like a place remembered you, like the walls knew your habits, your breathing, the sound your footsteps make at night, then you'll understand why I waited so long to write this. I kept hoping the feeling would fade. That I could convince myself this was just stress, grief, bad architecture, or my imagination spiraling. But houses don't follow you when you leave them. I'm writing this from my car, parked under a flickering gas station light off Route 17. I haven't slept in 3 days. Every time I close my eyes, I hear the same sound. Wood settling, slow and deliberate, like something shifting its weight upstairs. Except there is no upstairs anymore. Not where I am. The house collapsed 6 weeks ago. That's the part no one believes. They say the old Usher place was condemned for years. That erosion finally took it, that I was lucky to get out alive. They say trauma can make your mind fill in gaps, create patterns that were never really there. What they don't understand is this: the house didn't fall apart. It let me go. I moved to Mill Creek, Pennsylvania because it was quiet and cheap and far away from everyone who knew me before my divorce. It's the kind of town where nothing ever happens, and people like it that way. One diner, one gas station, a post office that closes at 4. Everyone waves, but no one asks questions they don't want answers to. The Usher house sat just outside town, half hidden by trees that leaned inward like they were listening. Locals called it the old Usher place, without ever explaining who the Ushers were or why the name still mattered. When I asked about it at the diner, the waitress just shrugged and said, "It's been empty longer than I've been alive." That should have been my first warning. The house was cheap. Too cheap. 2 stories, stone foundation, narrow windows that didn't quite line up symmetrically. The roof sagged in places, but the bones were solid, or so the inspector said. I remember standing in the entryway during the showing, listening to my footsteps echo longer than they should have. Old houses make noise. I knew that. Wood expands and contracts. Pipes knock. Air moves through places it shouldn't. I told myself all of that while I signed the papers. The first week was uneventful. I fell into a routine. Wake up early, coffee in the kitchen. Work remotely from the dining room table. The house smelled faintly of dust and cold stone, like a basement that never quite aired out. At night, the wind rattled the windows, and somewhere deep inside the walls, something popped softly, like knuckles cracking. I slept fine at first. Then I started noticing the pauses. Sounds would stop when I entered a room. The ticking radiator would fall silent the moment I crossed the threshold, then resume once I left. I'd hear movement upstairs, slow footsteps pacing the hallway, only to remember I lived alone. I blamed muscle memory. Old houses hold echoes of previous occupants. That's what people say, right? You get used to hearing what you expect to hear. But expectation doesn't explain why the upstairs hallway always smelled faintly metallic, like old pennies and damp wood, or why the mirror at the top of the stairs reflected the hallway just slightly wrong, as if the angles were off by a fraction. I avoided looking at it after the second week. The first night I didn't sleep at all was a Tuesday. I remember because I had an early meeting the next morning and kept checking the clock, watching the minutes crawl. Somewhere around 2:10 a.m., I heard breathing. Not loud, not dramatic, just there. It came from inside the walls, slow and measured, like someone sleeping in the next room. I lay perfectly still, holding my breath to make sure it wasn't me. The sound continued, steady and patient. When I finally worked up the nerve to get out of bed, the breathing stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier than the sound ever had. After that, things escalated in small, infuriating ways. Doors I knew I'd closed were open when I came home. Lights flicked on in rooms I hadn't entered. Once I found muddy footprints on the kitchen floor. bare feet, leading from the back door to the stairs. I stood there for a long time staring at them, my heart pounding, my mind scrambling for logic. Maybe the previous owner, a squatter, maybe I'd tracked them in myself and forgotten, but the prints were too narrow, and they didn't come back down. I started sleeping with my bedroom door locked. That didn't stop the footsteps. They paced the hallway every night around 3 a.m., always the same rhythm. 3 steps, pause, like someone measuring the length of the house. Sometimes they stopped outside my door. I'd lie there staring at the handle, waiting for it to turn, telling myself over and over that fear does strange things to your perception, that stress rewires the brain, that none of this meant anything, until the night I heard my own voice downstairs. It was faint, muffled by distance but unmistakable. Me, talking quietly like I was on the phone. I recognized the cadence, the way I pause mid-sentence when I'm thinking. I didn't go downstairs. I sat on my bed with my phone in my hand, fingers numb, listening to myself speak words I couldn't quite make out. When it finally stopped, I realized something worse than the fear. The voice had been coming from the walls. After that, the house stopped pretending. Rooms felt smaller, the ceilings pressed down, especially at night. The air grew stale, no matter how often I opened windows. I stopped inviting people over, because I couldn't explain why I flinched every time the house settled, or why I refused to let anyone go upstairs. Sleep deprivation did strange things to my sense of time. Days blurred together. I'd lose hours sitting in one place, convinced I'd heard something move just out of sight. One evening, I came home to find the mirror at the top of the stairs, turned to face the wall. I know I didn't touch it. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, staring up at it, my chest tight, my mind screaming at me not to go closer. The house felt attentive, like it was waiting to see what I'd do. That's when I realized the truth I'd been avoiding. The house wasn't haunted. It was aware, and it was learning me. I need to stop here for now. My hands are shaking, and the gas station light just went out. If you're still reading this, I need you to promise me something. If a place ever starts to feel like it's watching you, leave. Don't wait. Don't rationalize. Don't tell yourself you're being dramatic. I waited, and the house noticed. I don't know how much time passed between writing that last line and starting this again. The sun is up now, but it doesn't make me feel safer. Daylight stopped meaning anything to me a long time ago. If anything, it makes what happened harder to deny. I'm going to continue exactly where I left off, because skipping ahead feels dishonest, and because the worst part of this wasn't sudden. It crept in slowly, like a pressure change you don't notice until your ears start to bleed. After I realized the house was aware, I tried to leave. That sounds simple. It wasn't. The first time I packed a bag, I made it all the way to the front door. My hand was on the knob when I heard something behind me. My footsteps, coming down the stairs. Slow, familiar, the exact way I walk when I'm tired. I didn't turn around. I stood there, forehead pressed to the cold wood of the door, listening to myself descend each step. When the sound reached the bottom, when I felt breath warm the back of my neck, the doorknob twisted under my hand. Locked. I don't remember locking it. I don't remember anything after that, except waking up on the living room floor hours later, the door wide open, sunlight spilling across the threshold, like nothing had happened. I told myself I fainted. Panic attack. Stress. I stayed. From that point on, the house stopped hiding its routines. It began anticipating mine. Lights turned on in the room I was about to enter. The shower ran before I stepped into the bathroom. The kettle whistled when I thought about coffee. Comforting. Even. Like living with someone who knew me too well. That's what scares me the most now. I started talking to the house. Not out loud, not at first, just in my head. Complaints. Bargains. Please. I'd think, please stop the noise tonight, and the hallway would stay silent. I'd think I need sleep, and the footsteps wouldn't come. The night I thanked it, I sealed something I didn't understand yet. I woke up at 3:12 a.m. to the sound of breathing again, but this time, It was coming from inside my chest. Too slow, too deep. I sat up gasping, hands clawing at my ribs, convinced something else was controlling the rhythm of my lungs. That's when I heard the walls shift. Not settling, not creaking, moving. The sound traveled through the house, a deep internal groan, like something massive adjusting its posture. A picture frame slid off the wall and shattered on the floor without making a sound. Then the mirror screamed. I can't describe it any other way. High-pitched, shrill, glass vibrating like it was under stress. I stumbled into the hallway, just as the mirror at the top of the stairs cracked down the center, splitting my reflection into two uneven halves. Neither one moved when I did. That was the moment of paralyzing dread, the one that locked my body in place and drained every rational thought from my head, because the reflections were still breathing. From then on, the house decided when I slept. Sometimes it would go quiet for hours, letting me drift off, only to wake me with a door slamming somewhere far away. Other nights it kept me awake on purpose, floorboards pacing, pipes knocking in patterns that felt intentional. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks. I tried recording the sounds on my phone. Every playback came back clean. Silence. No matter how loud it had been in the moment. My coworkers started commenting on my appearance. I looked hollow, shaky. I caught myself answering questions I hadn't been asked, reacting to sounds only I could hear. One afternoon during a video call, someone asked me if I was okay. Before I could answer, I heard my voice say, "I'm fine." My mouth hadn't moved. I shut my laptop and screamed until my throat bled. That night I found a door in the basement. I know that sounds impossible. I'd been down there dozens of times. It was unfinished, concrete walls, exposed beams, no door. But there it was, set into the far wall, the wood dark and warped, like it had been soaked for years. No handle, no hinges, just a door. The air around it smelled like rot and damp paper, like something old that had been sealed away and forgotten. I stood there for a long time, heart hammering, every instinct telling me not to touch it. Behind me, the basement light flicked off, and something on the other side of the door knocked back. I don't remember climbing the basement stairs. I don't remember slamming the door at the top. I only remember the sound that followed me. Wood stretching, nails groaning, the house shifting to accommodate something new. Rooms changed after that. Hallways felt longer. Corners appeared where there hadn't been any. I once walked from the kitchen to the living room and passed 3 doors I'd never seen before, all closed, all quietly breathing. I stopped eating. Food tasted wrong, metallic, like it had been sitting in the walls before reaching my plate. Water smelled stale. Everything inside me felt claimed. The house began correcting me when I tried to leave rooms. If I turned left, the floor would slope right. If I reached for a light switch, the wall wouldn't be where I expected it. I'd bump into corners that hadn't existed seconds earlier. That's when I realized the truth. The house wasn't trapping me. It was rearranging itself around me, testing how far it could go. The pure panic hit the night I woke up to find the bedroom door gone. Not open. Gone. Just a smooth stretch of wall where it used to be, wallpaper intact, like the door had never existed. I clawed at it until my fingers bled, screaming until my voice gave out. The house answered by dimming the lights, slowly, like it was tucking me in. I don't know what finally made it let me go. Maybe it had taken enough, maybe it got bored, or maybe it realized I was breaking in a way it couldn't use anymore. The night the house fell, the walls shook with a violence I'd never felt before. Cracks raced across the ceiling. Furniture slid across the floor. Somewhere deep inside, something roared. Not loud, but massive. I ran. I don't know how the door came back. I don't know why the path to it was suddenly clear. I only know that the house seemed distracted, focused inward. As I burst outside, the ground trembled. Stones screamed. Wood snapped. I turned just in time to see the Usher house collapse inward on itself. Floors folding, walls caving like lungs exhaling their last breath. Dust billowed into the air, swallowing everything. Then it was quiet. Too quiet. The silence that follows something enormous deciding to stop pretending. I don't remember the drive to town. I don't remember who called for help. I remember sitting on the curb, staring at the empty space where the house had been, convinced it would stand back up if I looked away. They told me later the foundation had failed. Structural rot. Years of neglect. They never explained why there were no remains inside. They never asked how I got out. I'm telling you this now because the house didn't die. It just lost its shape. I know that because places feel wrong around me now. Stairwells stretch when I'm not looking. Sometimes mirrors don't reflect me right away. Sometimes I hear the same knocking. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. If you're listening to this, and you live in a place that feels too aware of you, if the silence feels intentional, if your reflection lingers a second too long, don't make my mistake. Leave before it learns you. Because once a place decides you belong to it, it doesn't need walls anymore.